Hey guys, tonight we trace history through something unexpectedly intimate your hair. More specifically, the carved, gilded, not so humble hair combs that once ruled the kingdoms of Africa, not just taming strands, but transmitting identity, wealth, resistance, and quiet brilliance through the ages. You're gonna sit beneath palm trees and palace ceilings, sail beside enslaved ancestors, and even find yourself reflected in the mirrored glass of a Harlem salon. And yes, you'll learn that your favorite TikTok updo owes a little thank you to the Nook. Just a heads up, you probably won't survive this if you're allergic to symbolism, because every calm in this story comes with sharp teeth and sharper meaning. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, where are you listening from? Drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in a warm courtyard under an enormous fig tree. The air smells like roasting yam and fresh palm oil, the kind that's so rich it turns everything gold. You sit cross-legged, head bowed slightly forward, while a woman behind you oils your scalp. You feel the teeth of a calm, not sharp, but firm, as she parts your hair with deliberate, almost ceremonial care. This is 14th century Yoruba land, somewhere around what you'd call Nigeria today. But there's no colonial border here, just the memory of drums and dynasties. And this calm, it's not just a calm, it's carved from smooth, polished wood with patterns that mimic the same ones etched into palace walls and royal tunics. Everyone in this courtyard knows what the design means. You're too polite to stare, but you can't help sneaking a glance at the row of combs laid out beside the stylist. Some are inlaid with brass. One gleams with a tiny embedded mirror. Another has 5 long, evenly spaced teeth, a symbol of balance and harmony, or so the elders say. Historians still argue whether combs like these were restricted to nobility or whether commoners used simpler versions. What's clearer is that these weren't generic tools. A person's comb could signal their age, clan, marital status, even profession. Think of it like your Instagram bio, except it's wooden, fits in your hand, and speaks louder. The oil on your scalp sinks in as the comb glides through, and you realize this act, this care, is part of something massive. Hair grooming, here, is a social ritual. It's storytelling. It's political. You're not just getting your hair done. You're being situated. The woman braiding your hair wears brass bracelets up to her elbows. She hums softly, then pauses. She swaps combs. A wider one now. This one has tiny etched spirals and a small bird carved into the handle. You wonder if it's just decorative, until someone nearby murmurs, "She's in mourning." The bird is a symbol for loss. They explain, something only those who've recently buried a loved one would use. Another comb in the collection has 2 human figures carved into the top. One man, one woman. You overhear an old woman say it's a wedding comb, carved by the groom himself, maybe, or passed down from mother to daughter with whispered blessings hidden in the grain. It's hard not to be a little in awe. You probably thought combs were just about hair. You didn't expect them to carry funerals, weddings, lineage, and maybe a low-key warning all in one. A skinny dog ambles by. Someone offers it a scrap of fish. A boy runs past laughing, his braids swinging. He holds a miniature comb. It's more toy than tool, and yet it's carved with surprising care. Even the smallest among them are taught that this object matters, that it speaks. Oh, and that palm oil you smell. It's more than a hair product. It's currency too, liquid gold. Used in ceremonies, in cooking, even in diplomacy. In fact, trade networks built on palm oil wealth helped fuel the flourishing art and sophistication of Yoruba societies, including their legendary carved combs. You tilt your head slightly as the comb moves again, soothing and rhythmic. It's hypnotic, really. And you realize this isn't just a moment of care. It's a cultural archive being rehearsed in real time. Later that day, you're offered the chance to hold one of the comms. It's surprisingly heavy. The handle is warm from the sun. There's a tiny crack running through one tooth, a sign of age, not weakness. You can almost hear the hundreds of conversations it must have heard over the years. Flirtations, condolences, debates about bride price, gossip about the king's latest wife. You run your thumb over a carved diamond motif. Protection, someone whispers. That same symbol, they say, is found on walls in Ife, on bronze sculptures, even on skin, tattooed or scarified. It's the visual language of a society that knew symbols could speak more gently and last longer than words. And isn't that what sleep is sometimes? A slow calm through the knots of your mind, pulling meaning from tangle. You stretch, the braid's nearly done. Your scalp tingles a little from the attention. Someone offers you a carved wooden mirror to admire the work. You don't need to look, though. You already feel the symmetry, the weight of tradition, sitting lightly on your head. The sun starts to dip. The comms are wrapped in soft cloth and set aside for tomorrow. You wonder if they dream too. The next morning begins with low laughter and the clink of bangles as the courtyard stirs to life. You stretch beneath a woven mat canopy and reach instinctively for your head, where last night's braids now rest comfortably, set like quiet architecture across your scalp. But your fingers find something else too. Tucked into the base of a braid is a slim wooden comb, its teeth finely spaced, its handle shaped like a half moon. You're not sure when it was placed there, but it feels intentional. As you rise and brush the dust from your robes, an elder nearby catches your gaze. She smiles knowingly, the lines around her eyes crinkling like folded linen. "It speaks for you," she says simply, then returns to pounding yum. Today, you're moving through a small market square where the air buzzes with the sweet and sharp scent of cola nuts and fermented millet. Sellers crouch behind baskets of smoked fish, shea butter, and patterned cloth, but one stall draws your eye in particular. Dozens of hair combs lie arranged like sun rays, carved, polished, stained, and inlaid. One comb has a top shaped like a stylized crocodile. Another features twin spirals back to back, a duality symbol, someone whispers, meant to show harmony between opposing forces. You're told it's worn by diplomats or those with a foot in two worlds. There's a quiet pride to the seller's explanation, as if every comb were a chapter in a book. Only a few still know how to read. Here in this part of the region, possibly somewhere between Yoruba and Igbo territories, comms are less about convenience and more about confession. You don't always speak your truth out loud. Sometimes you wear it in your hair. That comb tucked into your braid. It turns out it's a sign you're unmarried but of age. A kind of invitation, though not too forward. A statement without a sentence. One suitor walks past, spots it, and looks away too quickly. Someone's bashful. You try not to smirk. Historians still argue whether these calm designs evolved independently in different African societies or were shaped by shared ancestry and trade. Either way, there's a consistency. These objects don't just rest in the hair, they announce something. You pass a young woman seated on a woven mat. Her comb stands tall at the back of her head like a crest. The handle is carved with tiny faces, each one slightly different, as if observing from above. She's weaving palm fronds with long, practiced fingers. When asked about her comb, she shrugs, then says softly, "It keeps me watched over." Is it spiritual? Ancestral? A fashion statement with extra layers? All three, probably. There's one man, a weaver with ink, stained fingers, who proudly displays a comb shaped like a narrow tower. "My grandfather carved this when he became chief," he explains. "He wore it every market day, right behind his ear. It's not ornamental. It's testimonial. This is proof of lineage, of legacy." He offers to let you hold it for a moment. You do, and it's oddly warm, as if still holding memory. You wander past a group of teenage boys tossing pebbles near a well. One of them sports a comb that looks deliberately uncarved. Just plain wood, no design, You know Flair. You ask about it. He shrugs and says, I'm not part of anything yet. It's a kind of non-symbol, a silent resistance to the language of symbols. That's the thing about these comms. Even their absence is commentary. Nearby, a visiting craftsman sharpens a chisel beside a chunk of dark wood. Ebony, maybe. He invites you to watch as he begins shaping a new comm. No sketches, no plans, just intuition and memory. You see the person, he says. Then the comm appears. For him, it's a translation of character into form, of soul into symbol. One comm he shows you has 10 teeth, an even number rarely used except in funerals. Another features a geometric lattice reminiscent of woven cloth. Though it's wood, this one, he grins. It's for someone who talks too much. A soft dig, but carved with care. Quirky fact in some regions. People believed that a comm's teeth could trap dreams, like a physical dream catcher. A broken tooth. Bad omen. A missing one. Lost memory. That's why comms were often buried with their owners, just in case the next world required good hair days too. As the sun moves higher, you feel its heat on your shoulders and step beneath a shaded awning. A girl runs past you, giggling, her braids bouncing wildly. You see something flash in her hair, an amulet maybe, or another comm. It's gone before you can be sure. And suddenly it clicks. You've been surrounded by a language all day, but not once has it required your mouth. These comms, whether plain or ornate, wooden or brass, are like silent social media posts declaring mood, loyalty, emotion, politics, all without a single sound. You sit by the edge of the square, sipping something cool from a gourd. Around you, the world hums. People pass, comms glinting in the sun. You start to recognize patterns now. See the twins and triangles, the birds and boxes. You can almost read the conversation like a caption beneath a photo. And just as you start to drift into a quiet nap beneath your awning, the elder from the morning reappears. She leans down, adjusts the comm in your braids slightly, and says, now it tells the truth. You don't ask what that means, you just smile. You wake to drumming. Not a loud kind, just the distant, echoing thump of skin stretched tight over carved wood, like someone tapping a heartbeat into the air. The sun has mellowed into an amber glow, and a thin breeze carries the scent of frankincense and roasted goat. You're not in the market anymore. Now, you find yourself standing at the edge of a grand courtyard paved with coral tiles. Guards in scarlet wraps and elaborate headdresses flank a raised entryway, and beyond it, tall bronze doors glint with relief carvings of warriors, leopards, and kings. Welcome to the kingdom of Benin. Yes, the one that carved entire histories into brass and built city walls longer than China's. And the comm you carry? Let's just say it's about to meet royalty. You're ushered in without speaking. That's how it works here. Status is seen, not announced. The courtiers wear silken tunics and stand with spines straight enough to balance whole palaces. But it's not their clothes you notice. It's what's tucked into their hair. Ivory. Bone. Some comms glisten with gold inlays. One has an entire miniature figure carved into its spine, a warrior with a spear raised. Another bears a delicate latticework pattern mimicking a Benin bronze pike. These aren't grooming tools. They're thrones for the head. A young boy walks past you, no older than 8, and even his comm gleams ivory. His braids are tight and neat, and the comm rests like a crown. You raise an eyebrow, but a nearby official whispers, "That's a prince." Of course. Historians still argue whether ivory comms were exclusive to royal families, or simply a sign of immense wealth. But here, no one argues what they mean power. This is a society that's mastered the art of silent opulence, and comms are part of that language. You follow a line of petitioners toward the Oba's court. Most carry tribute, cloth, spices, copper. You have nothing in your hands, but you feel your own comm like a weight against your braid. A servant eyes it, nods slightly. It's not ivory, but it's well made. It speaks enough to grant you passage. Inside the hall, the light dims. Bronze plaques climb the walls. History's frozen in metal. Somewhere behind you, someone adjusts their headdress, and the tiny bell on their comm rings gently, a sound so delicate it's almost imagined. You glance back. It's not a bell. It's a beetle, cast in brass and affixed to the comm's handle. Decorative. Symbolic. Almost certainly. In Benin, nothing is ever just art. An official steps forward, announcing the arrival of a tribute from a distant village. You're not sure who he's referring to until he gestures. To you, your knees almost give out. You bow low and, remembering the elder's words, slide your comm from your hair and hold it flat in your palm. It catches the light. It's wood, yes, but it's carved with clean lines and motifs. You now recognize a balance, harmony, ancestry, a quiet Are-Same in object form. The Oba doesn't speak, but his gaze lingers on the comm before flicking to the official. A nod is given. You are acknowledged. That's it. But it's everything. Later, in the outer chamber, a steward explains more about the palace's comms. Some, he says, were once carved from walrus tusk or rhino horn, rare, expensive, and often imported through northern trade routes. Others bear inscriptions in Nensabidi, a pre-colonial system of writing based on ideograms. Essentially, emojis with spiritual degrees. One ancient comm, the steward claims, was rumored to contain a secret script known only to the king's spiritual advisors. You're not sure if that's true or just palace gossip, but it's delightful either way. He shows you one final comm, kept in a velvet lined box. It's large, too large to use, and is flanked by two stylized leopards. This, he whispers, was used in coronation. Not to style the Oba's hair, but to touch his brow. A benediction in ivory and symbol. Quirky detail. Some palace records suggest that combs were also used in divination rituals. A diviner might toss several onto a cloth and interpret their position like a celestial reading. Comb lands upright. Good omen. Tooth cracked. Trouble on the horizon. As you leave the palace, the sun is lower now, casting shadows like sharp, edged spears across the ground. You tuck your comm back into your braid, but it feels different somehow. More significant, more known. Around you, people move with quiet grace, comms peeking from plates, buns, and crowns. Each one a paragraph in a wordless dialogue, and you start to notice who has comms and who doesn't. Some traders carry them openly. Elders wear them like medals. But one noblewoman wears no comm at all, just a single braid coiled tight against her skull. She's mourning. Someone murmurs. Of course, the absence is the message. As twilight falls over Benin City, you find a quiet spot near a waterway, the sky blushing orange. The same river, they say, that once carried carved comms down to trade routes heading west. Objects turned emissaries, brushing borders before maps even had names. You dip your fingers in the water and feel the day wash off. And as you pull your comm from your hair one last time, its reflection ripples, splits, and settles. Still beautiful. Still speaking. You're resting now on the grassy banks of a river that winds, smooth and patient beneath the sun. Its waters are ancient. More ancient than kingdoms, more enduring than dynasties. The Nile. But you're not in the Egypt of Cleopatra or pyramids at sunset postcards. You're further south, in the lands once ruled by Nubia, where shadows stretch long and combs carry the shapes of stars. A woman squats nearby, carefully untangling her daughter's hair. She uses a comm carved from bone, narrow, precise teeth, but the top flares out into an angular design that immediately catches your eye. You squint. It looks geometric, almost architectural. A triangle nested inside another pointing skyward. You ask quietly what it means. The mother doesn't pause. It reminds us where we came from, she says. And where we're going. You lean back into the soft grass, the heat like a woolen blanket. Somewhere, a herdsman's flute flutters through the reeds. You glance up and spot small silhouettes moving along the horizon. Goats, maybe. Or spirits. Hard to tell. The comm, now resting beside the woman, starts to glow faintly in the late afternoon light. Its pale surface seems to shimmer like limestone, and suddenly you see it. The pyramids of Nubia, not the giant blocks of Giza, but sharp, elegant triangles, rising in clusters along desert ridges. They say there are more pyramids here than in all of Egypt. And while many tourists never hear their names, the people here carry echoes of them still. Sometimes, quite literally, in their hair. Historians still argue whether Nubian combs and hairstyles directly mirrored their architectural designs, or whether the triangle motif arose independently across cultural mediums. But look around, from the beadwork patterns to the tattooed lines on an elder's forearm. It's all angles, direction, alignment. One young man approaches, his own hair styled high and wide, sculpted like the prow of a ship. His comb juts from the side, its handle carved in the shape of a bird with outstretched wings. For Horus, he says, though his accent twists the name into something softer. He watches over the head. You nod slowly. The head is a temple here. Hair is sacred space. The comb, an altar or a key? Or maybe both. There's an older man nearby working on a fresh piece of ivory with a tool made of copper. He's drawing careful lines, referencing a small clay tablet with symmetrical markings. These, he tells you, pointing to the comb he's etching, are from the stars. He doesn't mean astrology, exactly. He means architecture. Celestial math baked into daily life. The teeth of his comb aren't evenly spaced. They alternate, short, long, like a code. He claims it channels protection. If spirits try to enter through the head, he whispers, the uneven pattern confuses them. You raise an eyebrow, but it's no stranger than carrying a rabbit's foot or avoiding mirrors after sunset. A quirky tidbit in parts of ancient Nubia, certain ceremonial combs were buried not with people, but in dedicated graves of their own, as if the comb had served long enough to deserve a resting place too. Some were laid beside statues of the goddess Hathor, a protector of women and joy, whose curled hair is echoed in many of the styles these combs once shaped. One such burial site, you're told, contained dozens of small bone combs arranged in a perfect grid. No names, no owners identified. Just the combs, perfectly preserved, like a library with its books, still whispering in the dark. You find yourself wondering what your own hair might say if it could. What shapes would form in your strands if someone from this place combed them with knowledge instead of product? Would your scalp hum with stories? Would geometry emerge in curls? A child skips past you, hair braided into delicate zigzags. Her mother's comb is tucked into the sash at her waist. Practical, portable. The handle bears what looks like an open eye. Protection again, maybe even foresight. You notice that her sash is dyed in indigo, and the scent of the river seems to cling to it. Wet stone, sweet grass, something ancient. And here's something unexpected. Some of these combs were used not just for hair, but for musical purposes. The carved handle, when struck against hollow wood or bone, produced rhythmic clicks, used in song, in ritual. So, your comb might style you and keep the beat during your cousin's wedding dance. You recline, drowsy now, as the air cools and the sky turns copper. People begin packing up. A low chant floats in the distance, punctuated by the rhythm of distant claps. The woman who first spoke to you picks up her daughter, combs tucked neatly away. She meets your gaze again and says, "You wear history, even when you forget." And then they're gone, shadows against the reeds. You're alone for a moment with the silence. You reach into your hair and gently tug out your own comb. For a split second, you angle it just right, and the teeth cast a shadow like stairs up a pyramid wall. Evening deepens into a velvety dusk as you travel westward, guided now by a caravan of warm voices, rhythmic footsteps, and the occasional bleating goat. Dust swirls beneath your sandals, and above, the sky turns violet, then indigo. You're entering Asanta territory, land of kings, golden stools, and textiles that ripple like flame. But tonight, the story isn't stitched. It's carved, and it starts at your scalp. You arrive in a village square that flickers with torchlight. Drums pulse low, ceremonial but casual. like someone's warming up for something bigger. Around you, everyone seems draped in color Kent cloth sways with each step, a moving grid of golds, greens, and reds. Patterns whisper power here, and you begin to realize, so do comms. You pass a girl seated before her mother, the woman working methodically through thick coils of hair. Each stroke of the comm is decisive, almost mathematical. You spot the tool she's using, carved wood. The handle flared out into a fan, like curve mimicking a Kenta pattern exactly. Same grid. Same rhythm. The cloth and the comm are in conversation, each speaking the same dialect of design. The mother doesn't look up, but she says, "Hair must align with the cloth, or the story breaks." You're not sure what that means yet, but it sits with you like a puzzle. You're pulled toward a nearby hut where older women sit weaving strands of raffia and silk. One calls you over and, with a wink, plucks a comm from her sash. It's different, wider, with teeth spaced like the bars of a xylophone. Its top is shaped like a stool, not just any stool, but the stool, the golden stool, sacred seat of Asante kings. She holds it reverently, then laughs. No one's allowed to sit on it. But we can wear it in our hair. Historians still argue whether these symbolic comms were regulated by royal law or simply held in cultural awe. But everyone agrees the stool is not a chair. It's a spirit, a center of identity. So when someone tucks it into their locks in miniature, that's not just fashion. That's reverence you can carry. Nearby, a man sharpens a small blade beside a stack of half-finished comms. Each one features its own unique flair, some with open diamonds, others with slanted lines that resemble the side of a drum. He gestures for you to try carving one. You hesitate, but his grin says, "Don't worry, the wood forgives." You make a small, hesitant etch, then another. It's slow going, but deeply satisfying. Like drawing with time. Quirky fact in Asante culture, there was once a tradition where men carved comms for the women they courted. The better the comm, the more impressive the suitor. One man carved a tiny forest scene into his, a love letter in landscape. Another, feeling bold, carved two joined hands, an unspoken proposal. When the girl accepted the comm, it was as good as a yes. You hold a finished example in your palm now, running your fingers over the miniature interlocking circles at the top. Unity, someone tells you. Or entanglement. Depends on the day. You chuckle. Relatable. A young warrior, lean and alert, passes by with a tightly packed afro, a glinting brass comm standing upright like a badge. It bears the Adinkra symbol Aban, a fence symbolizing safety and protection. For when I travel, he explains, it reminds me where I'm welcome. These Adinkra motifs, you're told, are part of a vast visual language used in textiles, carvings, tattoos, and, yes, comms. Each symbol is a chapter, each design a sermon. We don't write everything down, an elder says, but we remember it all. The hair itself becomes a canvas, and the comm, the brush. By now, you're sitting among the crowd watching a low, stakes dance contest near the fire. Dancers leap and twist, their comms barely shifting despite all the movement. You start to see the relationship, the shape of the hair, the symbolism of the comm, the rhythm of the body. Nothing is random. Each decision, cut, part, tuck, is choreography. A curious moment, one dancer pulls a comm mid-performance and holds it high above their head. Everyone cheers. It's a sign, something about claiming space, calling ancestors, or just showing off. Probably all three. The stars emerge, thick and low. The moon turns the village square silver. A child tugs at your sleeve and hands you a comm. Tiny, with uneven teeth. It's for your dreams, she says, then runs off before you can ask more. You tuck it behind your ear, unsure whether it's magic or mischief. As the fire dies down, you lie back against a woven mat. You hear the comms clinking softly as women pack them away, each wrapped carefully in cloth. You remember the mother who warned you, if the hair and cloth don't align, the story breaks. You think about that as your eyes close, how everything here is woven together. Not just in Kenti threads, but in meaning, in memory. And as you drift, the last image you see is your own hair in the reflection of a brass bowl, calm still shining, part of the pattern. The sun rises early on the savannah, sharp and insistent. You blink into the brightness and realize you're not alone. A slow, moving caravan winds past you. Camels, traders' families, and bundles tied high with goods. The air smells of leather, sweat, and distant rain. You're on the move now, pulled into the arteries of trans-Saharan trade, where ebony comes are more than keepsakes. Their currency, diplomacy, and sometimes disguise. Someone offers you a seat atop a gently swaying camel. You accept with as much grace as you can muster, clutching the saddle and bouncing like laundry in a basket. Ahead, the road stretches endlessly westward, toward Timbuktu, maybe, or Gao. Names that shimmer like heat on the horizon. A trader beside you unwraps a bundle and reveals an assortment of wooden combs, each carefully nested in dyed cloth. You lean in. The teeth are smooth and dark, the wood polished with shea and soot until it gleams. Ebony, he says. Black gold. Traded for salt silk and sometimes secrets. He holds one up, a comb with three-pronged teeth and a flat top carved with concentric circles. From the Niger Delta, he mutters. Meant to bring clarity. You wonder if he's joking or quoting someone's grandmother. Could be both. Historians still argue whether combs were a major item of trade or merely incidental, tucked into larger shipments like afterthoughts. But records do show that elite women in Mali, Songhai, and beyond requested certain types of combs from far-off regions, carved in styles that weren't local but deeply desired. Trade didn't just move spices and ivory. It braided cultures together strand by strand. You stop at a desert oasis where market stalls bloom like wildflowers. There's leatherwork, jewelry, and rows of combs. Some new, some clearly antique. One old woman offers you a piece with a crack down the middle. It was used by a queen, she says softly, or someone who thought she was one. You grin, but she's not joking. The comb is huge, made of dark wood veined with gold. Its teeth are blunt now, worn down by time and touch. But the top is still crisp, an eagle, wings spread, staring forward. Power, vision, freedom, all bundled into a hair tool. You buy it with a handful of salt cakes, suddenly aware of how absurdly valuable it feels. Nearby, a young man demonstrates how different regions carve different teeth arrangements based on local hair textures. This one, he says, pointing to a wide tooth comb for tight coils. This one, indicating finer teeth for post-oil detangling. This one, for show only, handle carved like a mosque tower, decoration, not function. He laughs. But people still try. Quirky fact. Some traders once used combs as currency modifiers, wrapping them in bundles of cola nuts or copper to signify a higher status exchange, like giving someone change and a compliment. You notice a pattern emerging. These combs aren't just goods. They're biographies. Carved in one place, traded in another, used in a third. Every scratch, every patina layer a passport stamp. Later, you sit beside a griot, an oral historian, who unrolls his leather satchel and produces not a drum, not a lute, but a calm. You raise an eyebrow. He smiles and begins to sing. His fingers move through his hair as he chants a lineage of names, calming with rhythm. The tool is functional, yes, but it becomes a metronome, a pointer, even a metaphor. To calm the past is to bring order, he says, still singing. To leave it tangled is to lose your name. You sit with that for a while. As twilight descends, you're drawn to a small fire surrounded by traders. They share stories, light pipes, and pass around a particularly odd comb. Small, triangular, almost geometric. No teeth at all. From far south? Someone mutters. Used to ward off the evil eye. Another voice adds, or maybe it's a fishing tool someone mistook for hair care. Even the experts aren't sure. That's part of the beauty. These combs drift across regions like whispered riddles, meaning always implied, never certain. As the stars sharpen overhead, you lie on a woven mat, the air warm against your skin. You take out the cracked eagle calm and hold it against the firelight. Its shadow flickers on the sand beside you, a reminder of wings. You close your eyes and imagine the journey it's been on, carried in a saddlebag across dunes, tucked into braids in a village courtyard, sold in a whisper, bought with a prayer. Tomorrow you'll travel again. More routes, more traders, more calms whose origins no one quite agrees on. But tonight, you sleep knowing you're part of the route now. Another strand in the braid. Night deepens into stillness, but firelight flickers nearby, casting golden patterns on the walls of a circular hut. You're curled on a mat, legs tucked beneath you, sipping something warm and spiced. Around the fire, a group of listeners leans in toward a single figure agreeat. He's old, with a voice like gravel soaked in honey, and eyes that seem to blink in slow motion, and tucked into the belt of his robe, just behind a ceremonial dagger and a string of charms, is a calm. You wouldn't expect it, really. It looks ordinary at first. Wooden, modest in size, its teeth worn smooth from decades of use. But when he pulls it free, the room subtly shifts. People nod in recognition, like he's unsheathing something sacred. He doesn't comb his hair with it. Not immediately. He taps it on his thigh. A soft percussive rhythm. It's the prelude. Before books. He says, "There were braids." The calm lies in his palm now, still. And before kings ruled by swords. He continues. They ruled by how well their stories were remembered. And then the story begins. You're swept into a tale of two sisters born under an eclipse, one destined for battle, the other for healing. Their fates intertwine like cornrows, parting and meeting again. And as the griot weaves this narrative, he uses the calm like punctuation, stroking his beard, pausing between stanzas, even using the teeth to draw arcs in the sand beside him, mapping out migrations, battles, unions. Historians still argue whether combs were regularly used as mnemonic tools, but oral traditions are full of rhythm, repetition, and touch. And in the griot's hands, the comb becomes more than an object. It's a conductor's baton, a mnemonic anchor. You start to notice every gesture he makes with the comb coincides with narrative turns. A sharp flick of the wrist as the battle begins. A slow dragging movement as the hero mourns. When the tale crescendos, he raises the comb high, holding it against the firelight like a torch. Then he finally pulls it through his hair, once, slowly. That stroke contains 1,000 years. Later, the children fall asleep, one by one, their heads resting on their arms, smiles still curled on their lips. You remain awake, enraptured, as the griot turns his attention to you. He offers the comb. You hesitate, then accept it gently. It's surprisingly light but dense with memory. You run a finger over the top, which is carved in a spiral. Cycle, he says, not just of seasons or moons, but of stories. What fades returns. What's forgotten waits? Quirky detail. In some villages, it was believed that griots were born with combs in their hands. Not literal ones, but spiritual tools of arrangement. They combed tangled truths into coherent stories, separating lies like knots and smoothing out collective memory. You try to return the comb, but he waves you off. Hold it tonight. Let it speak while you dream. You step outside the hut, the comb still warm from his hands. The stars have grown thick and layered, as if stacked in braids themselves. You sit on a rock, letting the cool air settle into your skin. And there, in the hush of the night, you realize you remember every beat of the story he told. Not just the plot, but the rhythm, the turns of phrase. Even the way he tapped his thigh. You understand, now, that the comb wasn't a prop. It was part of the tale's architecture. Like scaffolding invisible to the untrained eye, you return inside and rest beside the hearth, the embers low and glowing. The comb lies beside you, casting a long shadow, like a sentence waiting to be finished. Your thoughts drift. Tomorrow, maybe you'll try telling a story using it. See if your fingers remember what your mind forgets. Maybe you'll part memory from myth, like hair from scalp. And maybe, just maybe, you'll begin to braid your own tale. The sky turns gray above a vast, rolling sea. Waves slap the hull of the ship, rhythmic and cruel. You grip a wooden beam, trying to steady your breath, but the air is thick with salt, sickness, and something even heavier, fear wrapped in silence. The year? Hard to say. The journey? One of the worst in human history. You're aboard a transatlantic slave ship, somewhere between West Africa and the Americas, and even your thoughts feel shackled. Around you, people lie motionless, others murmuring in languages you half understand. The chains bite into wrists and ankles, but it's the weight of what's been taken. The names, the soil, the voices that presses hardest. And yet, even here, there is resistance. It whispers through braids. It hides in the fold of cloth. And yes, it's clenched in the palm of a woman's hand, tight and trembling. She holds a comb. Small, carved from bone or scrap wood. You can't be sure. It's rough, unpolished. Just a skeleton of the ornate tools you've seen in calmer days. But she guards it like treasure. She waits for the right moment. When the sailors are distracted, when the darkness covers her better than a blanket. Then she uses it, not for vanity, for memory. You watch as she parts the hair of a younger girl beside her. The child is shaking, terrified. The woman hums a low tune, maybe a lullaby, maybe a prayer. And as she comes, she weaves. Cornrows small and precise, forming what seems like a pattern. You lean closer, it's not decoration. It's information. Somewhere along the coast, they say, women began braiding maps into their daughters' hair. Geographic signals, disguised as style. Patterns told you when to run, where to go, who to trust. A zigzag here meant a river crossing. A circle meant danger. And the comb, it was the tool that turned survival into sculpture. Historians still argue whether these braided maps were widespread fact or beautiful myth, but oral accounts are too consistent to dismiss. The act of hair styling became tactical. Combs became instruments of coded resistance. That woman's comb, chipped and hidden in the lining of her wrap, had likely crossed borders before her, passed between hands, smuggled in baskets, clutched in moments of goodbye. Quirky detail. Some enslaved Africans used fish bones or animal ribs as makeshift combs aboard ships. Whatever could be carved or filed into shape, tools made from the debris of forced migration, and every mark etched into them. A refusal to forget. You huddle close, the boat swaying like a cradle, with no mercy. The woman finishes the child's braids and slides the comb back into her cloth belt. She catches your eye, not angry, not afraid, just knowing. She nods once. You don't speak. You don't need to. Later, when the ship docks, chaos erupts. Orders shouted, people prodded and sorted. But before she's separated from the child, the woman does something swift and barely noticeable. She untucks the comb and pushes it into the girl's braid, right above the ear. You don't know if it will be found. You don't know if it will survive the market, the plantation, the years ahead. But you understand, it matters. It is history in miniature, a pocket-sized rebellion. You step off the ship into new soil. The air is different here, wet with unfamiliar heat, thick with green things growing. The scent of sugar cane lingers. So do the eyes of those already here, watching, judging, hoping. In the fields, you see combs again. Fewer, simpler, often hidden. A flash of bone tucked behind a braid. A wooden fragment knotted into a scarf. You begin to learn the new codes, the way people speak with side glances and parting lines. At night, back in the huts, you hear low songs. Hands move through hair again, slowly, carefully, and always, a comb appears. Passed hand to hand like contraband and communion. Someone tells you that combs are banned on some plantations, seen as tools for pride, for gathering, for messages. But people find ways. A sliver of horn becomes a handle. A forked stick does the job. Function turns to art. Art becomes memory. Memory becomes power. You lie on a straw mat, face to the wall, and run your fingers along your scalp. You haven't felt a real calm in days, but you remember how it feels. And that memory in this moment is an act of resistance. You close your eyes, and in the dark you see teeth, wooden, smooth, worn down by love and labor. They move through curls not just to tidy them, but to say, "You are not broken. You are not lost." You wake to the scrape of metal on stone and the low murmur of voices just outside your door. It's early. Too early. And the world is already hot. You're in the fields now, the sun not yet risen, and the cane is tall enough to swallow the wind. You trudge through dew, soaked grass, a hoe slung over your shoulder, the weight of yesterday clinging to your back. The overseer's whistle shrieks once, and bodies bend in unison. But there, in the hush of early morning, you notice something subtle, too subtle for most to catch. A woman 2 rows over bends to adjust her head wrap. As she does, something gleams, a carved wooden comb, slid from her waistband and palmed for just a moment. You can't see it clearly, but the gesture is familiar, practiced. It's not just a comb, it's a key. Later, you find her near the cookhouse, hands deep in dough, sleeves rolled high. The comb is tucked behind her, half hidden beneath a sash. You ask about it casually. She raises an eyebrow. "That," she says. "It tells you where to go when the moon is high." You blink. "Go where?" She doesn't answer, but her smirk curls like smoke. You sit beside her on the stoop that night, the air thick with the buzz of insects and secrets. She hands you the comb. This close you can see it properly, 5 teeth, each of differing lengths. The handle is wide and flat, carved with tight ridges. Decorative, possibly, but something about the symmetry feels directional. "It's a map," she murmurs, and suddenly you see it. The teeth mimic paths. The spacing resembles river crossings. 1 notch carved near the handle's base. A safe house. A landmark. Something only insiders would know. Historians still argue whether escape routes were truly embedded in the form of hair combs, or if this is a tale grown tall in the soil of resistance. But whether myth or memory, the belief carried people through. And belief, that's often more powerful than proof. Quirky fact, some enslaved people embedded tiny messages into their combs, coded scratches or bead patterns, each interpreted only by those taught to read them. Like hieroglyphs, but pressed against the scalp. In the stifling dark of the slave quarters, you sit among a group of women braiding hair in silence. There's no laughter tonight, only focus. 1 braid, then another. A pattern emerges, zigzags, then straight lines. A cross, a fork. Each head becomes a living map, and each calm stroke a whispered direction. You're handed a bowl of water and instructed to wash your hands before touching any combs. "Clean hands, clean journey," one woman says, without looking up, and just before sleep a man enters. Young, wary, eyes sharp. He scans the braids, the combs, the faces. Then he nods once and disappears into the night. You don't ask. You don't need to. The escape is planned. You can feel it. The urgency braided tight, the hope slid into every part, every section, every line. That night, you sleep lightly. The calm is tucked under your mat, a talisman and a torch. You dream of rivers, of dense forests, and stars so bright they seem to crack the sky. You see braids like highways and combs like compasses. And in the dream, someone presses a comb into your hand and whispers, "You'll know when it's time." You wake before dawn. A woman gestures to you. You nod. It's time. You don't take anything with you but what you're wearing, and the comb, now tucked safely in your hair. It's not sharp, but it feels like a blade. Not loud, but it sings in your scalp. Not large, but it holds multitudes. As you slip past the cane fields, through a gap in the fence, you find yourself in a narrow path flanked by trees. The moon is full, lighting the way. And when the trail forks, you reach up and feel the teeth of the calm. Left. You turn. In that moment, you understand the calm was never just for grooming. It was always a message in motion. It was freedom, not yet spoken, but already carved. You find yourself now decades later, somewhere on the edge of freedom. The war has ended, the papers have been signed, and the South is slowly unraveling its old poisons, one rusted link at a time. But the chains aren't entirely gone, they've just changed shape. Still, There's a sense of breath, a cautious inhaling of possibility. And you, dear traveler, are sitting in a wooden chair with a straight back, surrounded by the buzz and hum of conversation clippers and the occasional puff of cigar smoke. Welcome to the barbershop. This isn't a salon. This is a sanctum. The chair you sit in creaks under your weight, but it's the good kind of creak, like a well-used pew or a favorite porch step. The man standing behind you has a white towel draped over one shoulder and a pick in his back pocket. His calm is wood, light, smooth, with faint carvings near the handle. You recognize them immediately, spirals and chevrons, echoes of home. You wonder if he knows what they mean. You wonder if you do. He taps your shoulder. Shape up. You nod. As he works through your hair, his fingers fast and firm, he leans close and whispers, "You heard about the vote?" You blink. "What vote?" He glances around, then mutters, "County meetin' next week. Freedmen gatherin'. Real plans being made. Folks comin' in from 2 towns over." Quiet, though. You nod again, slower this time. You're not just getting a haircut. You're being groomed for more than a clean neckline. Historians still argue how central the barbershop truly was in post-emancipation black politics. But there's no doubt it was a center, a fulcrum, a place where resistance was shaped with razors and ideas. You glance around. The man beside you flips through a newspaper printed in tiny, tight letters. Another one scribbles on a napkin, then hides it in his coat. A boy sweeps hair from the floor and slips a comb into his back pocket with a flick that says, "Mine." That comb. You see it later. Narrow teeth, brass detailing, initials carved on the side. It passes between pockets like a calling card. Quirky detail in some communities. Barbers took to hiding messages within combs themselves. Tiny slits in the wood where notes could be tucked. A slip of paper. An address. A name. The comb might sit innocently on the counter, but the next person who picked it up walked away with a plan. You begin to notice the signals. A comb placed teeth up on the table. Someone needs help. Teeth down. Someone offered help. Laid across a mirror. Too dangerous today. The man finishing your cut offers a mirror. You glance, nod, and hand it back. Then he slides a different comb into your shirt pocket. "For the meeting," he says simply. "You don't ask questions, you know better." Later that evening, you walk past a small church with candles flickering in every window. Inside, people are seated in rows, combs tucked into hair and scarves like medals. There's a rhythm here. Each comb a badge, each hairdo a declaration. A woman at the front speaks of education. Another rises and speaks of land. Then a man stands, slow and heavy, and speaks of dignity. You reach into your pocket and touch the comb. It doesn't speak, but it says everything. Outside, after the meeting, the barbers gather quietly behind the church. They compare notes. Who's coming? Who's watching? Who's missing? The combs they carry aren't fancy. They're workmanlike, solid. But each is worn in just the right way, like a preacher's Bible. You offer yours. It's examined, then returned with a pat on the shoulder. You're part of it now. As you walk back through dusty streets, you hear laughter spilling from a home nearby. Inside, a girl is getting her hair pressed for the first time, squirming while her mother scolds her gently. On the table beside them, 2 combs rest, a straightening iron and a carved pick. Old world, new world, braids and presses, symbols and shine, and you realize something profound. Even now, in this between moment where slavery has ended but freedom isn't fully born, the calm remains. It adapts. It carries. It speaks. You return to the barbershop the next day. The man nods but doesn't speak. He's working on someone else now, and the clippers buzz steadily. But on the counter is a comb, its teeth gleaming. You pick it up without asking. You feel its weight. You feel history, and you pocket it. The sidewalks crack beneath your feet as you step into Harlem, 1920s Harlem to be exact. The air smells of hot pavement, tobacco, and something electric like jazz in the bones. You're here in a time when everything is shifting. Art, language, race, music, and yes, hair. Especially hair. You duck into a narrow storefront where the air is thick with heat and the sound of a sizzling press calm. It's a beauty salon run by three sisters, each more opinionated than the last. Inside, women sit beneath hooded dryers, flipping through magazines inside, eyeing each other's styles with affectionate judgment. And on every counter, combs, straightening combs, metal picks, wooden parting tools. Some gleam with brass, others show signs of battle, burnt teeth, bent handles, a little scorched oil staining the tips. You spot one comb that's been carved into a tiny crown. Its teeth are charred at the ends from constant use. The woman working on your hair hums a tune that sounds suspiciously like Bessie Smith. She's fast, precise, and clearly unbothered by your flinching. Beatty takes heat. She says, grinning as she pulls the hot comb through your hair. Historians still argue whether the hot comb, popularized in America, was invented by Madame C.J. Walker or adapted from French tools. But in this room, no one's debating. It's Broward. It's practicality. The hot comb doesn't just straighten hair, it straightens identity, smoothing it into shapes more palatable to white employers, landlords, ticket sellers. But it also sparks something else. Conversation. Debate. The woman next to you, fresh from Fisk University, raises her eyebrows and says, "You know straight hair ain't liberation." The woman behind her, finger waving a client's bangs into perfection, fires back, "And you're gonna get a job with that halo of naps." You grin? This is not just a salon, it's a symposium. Every comm here is a position paper, a protest sign, a love letter to a complex self. One of the sisters, Eliza, the boldest, shows you her collection. She keeps it in a drawer beneath the register. Comes from her grandmother's time. A silver one from Paris, a broken ivory pick from the south, and a strange little one carved into the shape of a book. That, she says, belonged to Zora. You blink. Zora Neale Hurston, the anthropologist, novelist badass, she says, with a wink. Left it here after arguing about Langston Hughes. You don't know if it's true. It doesn't matter. Eliza's proud of her collection. We style heads. Yes, she says, but we're styling thoughts too. Quirky fact, in Harlem during the 20s and 30s, some stylists used heated combs to print subtle patterns into hair, almost like temporary tattoos. Little hearts, stars, even letters. These embellishments rarely lasted more than a day. But for one night at the Cotton Club, perfection. You sit in a corner afterward, hair wrapped in silk, watching the street through the window. Outside, boys in suspenders argue over who's the better trumpet player. A girl with long, glossy waves walks by, her metal pick catching the sunlight like a signal. The woman beside you leans over. You know, I tried the natural look once. Too much talking. Everyone got an opinion when you stop conforming. You nod, you've heard that story before, and you'll hear it again, decades from now. The comb beside you is cool to the touch now, resting in a dish of oil. You pick it up and run a thumb along its edge. There's a faint inscription burned into the handle. Be sin. That's all it says. Later that night, you head to a small poetry reading in a speakeasy basement. You sit on a crate near the back while a woman with a smoky voice reads lines about rivers and rebirth. Her hair is sculpted high, waves slick down. A single comb holding everything in place. It's wood, dark and carved with stars. She doesn't mention it in the poem, but you feel it echo through every verse. As you leave, the wind picks up and Harlem hums like it knows secrets you'll never finish learning. You pass a barber shop where a man presses a young boy's hair, muttering something about first impressions matter. Across the street, a woman styles her daughter's braids on the stoop, a comb clutched between her teeth while she tightens apart. You realize you've seen this before, on boats, in palaces, by firelight. Same hands, same teeth, different time. You head home, hair wrapped again, and place your borrowed comb on the windowsill. Tomorrow it'll glow in the sun like it always has, You're marching now, the pavement hot beneath your boots, and the sky above alive with chanting. It's Oakland, late 1960s, and every step you take lands with purpose. The crowd is thick. Leather jackets, burettes, and unapologetic afros rising like a field of protest. This is the era of fists raised high, of posters slapped on walls, of metal comms that shout as loud as any bullhorn. You pause outside a community center, the walls painted with black, and red murals. Malcolm, Huey, Angela, all staring down history with the same defiance you feel pulsing in your chest. Someone hands you a pamphlet. Someone else hands you a comm. It's not a regular comm. This one's made of metal, shaped like a fist. Solid, heavy. The kind of object you could tuck into your belt and forget until you needed it. Either to pick your hair or, if things got rough, as a last resort weapon. You nod thanks and slip it into your pocket. You're learning fast everything is layered now. Afros aren't just style. They're resistance. They're announcements. And the Afro pick, that once simple grooming tool, has evolved into a cultural artifact with political teeth. Historians still argue whether the raised fist pick originated as a formal design from artists within the Black Panther movement, or whether it emerged organically from street culture. But one thing's clear, it spread like wildfire. And its message, instant. You walk into a classroom where activists gather for a workshop. On the chalkboard, Kenandu or Rigi HTS. Beneath it, someone has drawn a huge Afro pick, its handle shaped like the African continent. No one even points it out, it's just assumed you get it. The pick sits on desks, beside books and pens. People twirl them in their hands while they speak, use them as pointers during presentations. It's a symbol, a tool, and, let's be honest, a bit of a prop. But no one minds. It earns its place. Quirky fact. Some radical designers in the 70s created double-ended picks. One side for hair, one for messages. The handle would unscrew to reveal a rolled-up flyer, protest chant, or even a court date reminder. Hair tool meets underground printing press. You sit beside a woman with the tallest afro you've ever seen. It curves like a planet around her head, perfect and luminous. Her pick? Lucate, neon pink, with black is beautiful, etched across the top. She winks. Took me 2 hours and a full jar of grease. She says, but I walk into rooms like I own the zip code. Outside, more marchers pass. A boy no older than 10 stands on a milk crate, shouting into a toy megaphone. He's wearing an afro too, short and fuzzy. But it's the pick stuck in the back that gets everyone smiling. Shaped like a lion's head, it roars without making a sound. You pass a shop window filled with grooming tools. Combs and picks, sprays and oils. But the most prominent display is a blown-up photograph. A young man standing defiantly on the steps of a courthouse, one hand on his hip, the other fixing his afro with a comb that glints under a headline. Undeniably American. Later, you enter a hair salon that doubles as a hangout. Posters line the walls, and Curtis Mayfield hums through the speakers. A stylist is twisting coils into a customer's hair while telling her about the new law passing downtown. They think they can make us small, she says, so we wear our hair big. The comb in her hand is pure metal, the handle wrapped in electrical tape for grip. It's worn at the edges. This one's seen things. You sit in the waiting area watching the dance of hands and hair. Every comb stroke seems to echo louder than scissors ever could. You notice that even when no one's talking politics, they are, through styles, through picks, through how high someone lets their roots reach. At night, you attend a rally in a park. The stage is lit by floodlights. A poet steps up and reads a piece about his mother's hands and the metal comb she kept beside the bed. It wasn't armor, he says, but it made me brave. You reach into your pocket and pull out your own comb, now warm from your body. You hold it tight. It feels like something between a baton and a relic. The wind picks up. The crowd sways. Someone raises a fist. 100 more follow. And scattered through those afros, high, tight, wild, hollowed, You see the gleam of metal picks catching moonlight like sparks. You understand, at last, this isn't fashion. It's architecture. Not vanity, but victory. You blink into bright white lights and the echoing clack of high heels on tile. It's the 1990s now, and you're backstage at a fashion show. Paris, Milan, New York. You're not quite sure. Doesn't matter. The air smells like hairspray, foundation, and last-minute panic. Designers shout in 5 languages, models are half-dressed and entirely flawless, and in the middle of it all, a girl sits calmly, her head tilted slightly as a stylist threads cornrows into perfect rows, each one stitched like calligraphy. And just beside her tray of tools a comb, carved with the elegance of an old grandmother's whisper. It's wood, aged, with floral patterns that look more village than vogue. But here it is, flanked by sleek plastic brushes and chrome curling irons holding its own. You lean in closer. The teeth are slightly uneven. Handmade. Loved. Definitely not from a department store. The stylist, an older woman with a tattoo of Ghana on her wrist, glances at you and smiles. My mother carved it, she says, under a mango tree. Said every woman needs a calm that listens. You grin. Does it? She nods. Better than most people. You watch as she finishes the style, rose feeding into a braided crown, tight and regal. On the runway, it'll be called Afro, chic, or tribal elegance. But to the stylist, it's just what her aunt used to wear to weddings. Historians still argue how much of 90s high fashion borrowed from African aesthetics versus how much it simply recycled without acknowledgement. Either way, the signs are everywhere. Comes, patterns, shapes, silhouettes that walk straight out of history and onto catwalks. You peek into a model's dressing room and spot a small altar of beauty tools, foundation palettes, fake lashes, and, yes, a carved ivory comb. Not for use, just display. A gift from someone's grandmother, perhaps. A talisman, one that's crossed oceans and borders to sit beside a Channel lipstick. Quirky fact, several top designers in the 90s hired stylists specifically trained in African braiding techniques. Not just for authenticity, but because the patterns lasted longer under hot runway lights. Art meets endurance. In a corner, a photographer fiddles with his lens. He's snapping behind. The scene's shots for a glossy magazine spread titled Textures. The model he's focusing on. Her afro's so wide it's been adjusted for frame balance. The pick in her hair, a custom commission, gold-plated with an Ethiopian cross at the top. Later, critics will call the look a striking mix of ancient and modern. But the girl just calls it Sunday hair. Backstage, the energy surges. The music thumps low and insistent. Stylists move like clock hands, ticking from one head to the next. And through it all, the humble calm continues its silent work, untangling, parting, defining, a language spoken in millimeters. You overhear a designer telling a reporter, "We're inspired by heritage this season." Then he gestures vaguely at a board pinned with fabric swatches and a single photo of a Fulani braid pattern. You suppress a smirk. The stylist next to you does not. "That's my auntie's wedding look," she mutters, barely audible, from 1963. Now it's Coucher. Still, no one stops the show. If anything, they lean into it. Braids appear under veils. Twists peek through mesh hats. One model struts the runway with a comb in her gown, literally stitched into the neckline. Its teeth fanned across her collarbone. You remember the griots? The escape maps. The whispering courtyards. And now here it is again, rebranded and renamed but still speaking. After the show, there's a party in a penthouse suite. Champagne flows. Music pulses. Someone's talking about ancestral aesthetics over a crystal flute of something bubbly. But in the hallway, you see a young intern carefully wrapping a comb in velvet and placing it back into her backpack. You ask about it. "My dad gave it to me," she says. Said it belonged to his mother. She brought it over from Ghana when she immigrated. You nod. "Does it still work?" She laughs. "Too well. I don't even have to say what I'm feeling. My hair does it for me." and maybe that's the truth of it. Culture bends, but the calm continues. It watches, it listens, it lasts. The ring light hums. Your phone is propped against a stack of books, angled just right, and the record icon glows red. Welcome to the 2020s, where history meets hairstyle in 60-second tutorials and midnight scrolls. You're on TikTok now, twisting your hair slowly, rhythmically, in front of millions of ghost viewers and one very judgmental cat. You pull out your comb, a black plastic wide tooth with gold flecks embedded in the handle. Mass-produced, maybe. But it feels right in your hand. Familiar. Empowering. You hold it up for the camera, flash a quick smile, and begin. Hey guys, today we're doing a modern Molly twist. Pause. What you don't realize, at least not yet, is that the style you're recreating from a Pinterest board comes from a centuries-old kingdom. That exact twist pattern. It mirrors motifs found in ancient Malian stone carvings, some as old as the 13th century. Lines in hair echoed in the walls of Jenne. Geometry that linked queens, weavers, and spiritual guides long before hashtags ever existed. Historians still argue whether these patterns were shared consciously across time or simply emerged from the natural rhythm of hand and hair. But when you glide your comb through the first section, you're participating in something older than trending audio. The comments flood in. Yes, this is the look. Reminds me of my grandma in Lagos. What comb is that though? Link please. You respond to a few, maybe pin a tutorial. But it doesn't register, not fully. Not yet. That your comb, with its wide teeth and subtle groove along the handle, resembles one dug up from an archaeological site in Senegal just 2 years ago. That one had patterns etched not for grip, but for prayer. Your phone vibrates. Another comment. A DM asking for the meaning behind that braid design. You hesitate. You don't actually know. But maybe, just maybe, you want to find out. Quirky fact in some 17th century Fulani communities, girls received their first ceremonial comb at age 12. Not for vanity, but as a tool of adult responsibility, symbolizing the first time they would care for another's hair. That idea. You're living it now, digitally, carrying through the screen, teaching hands you've never seen. Later that week, a follower tags you in a video. A side by side, your tutorial next to a photo of a 19th century Malian woman, her hair styled nearly identically. We've been doing this. The caption reads, you stare at it for a long time. Outside, a storm taps on the window. You put down your phone and pick up your comb again. Suddenly, you remember the griot with his story, comb, tapping rhythm into firelight. You think of the woman braiding escape roots into her daughter's hair, the pick raised like a fist on a sidewalk, the combs in velvet backstage, the bird carved in mourning, the stool of a king. You open a book you haven't touched in months. African art and artifact. Page after page of hair combs. Photos. Diagrams. Whole museum pages describing ceremonial uses, village roles, marital customs. And there, on page 7-2, is a comb almost identical to yours. Not in plastic, but wood. The design near the handle. Same curve. Same spacing. Suddenly, you feel it. Not just pride, not just style. Connection. You film a new video the next day. No music. No filter. Just you, the comb, and the story. You speak softly, tracing the outline of the handle as you talk about heritage, about memory disguised as routine, about how doing your hair was never just about hair. And the comments. They change. This made me cry. I didn't know our combs had history. My mom always said her comb had a spirit. I thought she was just being poetic. You smile. Maybe she was. But maybe she knew something you're only beginning to understand. That night, you place your comb on your nightstand. Not tossed, but rested deliberately. Like an offering, you dim the lights, turn on your fan, and dream again of lines. Rows, teeth, not sharp, just true. You're standing in a museum now. It's quiet, almost unnaturally so. Your shoes click softly on polished floors as you step into a gallery draped in low, forgiving light. The walls are lined with glass cases, But you're not here for the oil paintings or colonial swords. You're here for the calms. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, lined up like soldiers and saints. Some are wooden, others ivory, horn metal. Some are the size of your palm, others tower like altars, and each one hums. Not with sound, but with story. You step closer to the first case, a calm from the Congo Basin, late 1800s. Dark, narrow, carved with a figure sitting cross-legged atop the handle. Beneath the plaque, a tiny line, function unknown, possibly ceremonial. You smile. Of course it was ceremonial. Every calm is. Further down, a sleek brass piece from Mali gleams under the light. Its teeth are rounded from use, and the top has a lattice of triangles. You recognize the pattern. It matches one you saw in a friend's hairstyle just last week. Centuries apart, same shapes. Historians still argue whether these calms are best classified as art or utility. But to you, that's the wrong question. They were always both. Art you held in your hand, utility with a heartbeat. A few visitors pass behind you, speaking in hushed tones. One gestures at a calm with an eagle atop it. Another points at a pick with a clenched fist. Black Power, 1970s. It's displayed right next to a carved Yoruba piece from the 1600s. Across centuries, the echo is unmistakable. You sit on a bench in the center of the gallery and just breathe. Quirky fact, in some museum archives, calms are stored not with hair care items or fashion, but with religious artifacts. Because curators eventually realized they weren't grooming tools, they were personal relics. A nearby plaque reads, "Calms as cultural communication." But you know that's too clinical. These aren't just communications. They're confessions, petitions, warnings, poems. You close your eyes and remember them all. The grandmother braiding beneath a fig tree. The prince with an ivory crest. The woman parting maps into her daughter's scalp. The barber sliding secrets into his pocket. The stylist threading cornrows under Paris lights. The TikToker holding a legacy without realizing. And now, here, you, in this gallery. You step up to a case that holds a calm carved from bone, so delicate it seems to vibrate in the glass. The tag reads, "Origin unknown." You place your hand against the glass. You know the origin. It came from hands. From care. From love. It calmed tears and lullabies and liberation. It calmed first days of school and wedding mornings and funeral preparations. It calmed joy into place and grief into shape. And still, somehow it calms you. You walk through the final hallway, past textile displays and beadwork. At the very end is a mirror. Simple, full length, mounted above a placard that says, "Reflections of Heritage." You catch your face in it. Your hair, your hands, and then you're calm. It rests gently in your pocket. Or maybe it's behind your ear. Or maybe, just maybe, you've placed it on your nightstand, waiting for the next day. Whatever the case, it's yours. And it's still listening. When down 300 words, let your shoulders drop now. Loosen the space between your eyes. Breathe in, soft and slow, like you're sipping steam from a mug in the dark. You've walked through time tonight, not through wars or revolutions, not through kings or cathedrals, but through care. Through something gentle and powerful, a simple calm that turned out to be anything but simple. You've sat in dusty courtyards, under royal roofs, beside ship rails, and behind salon chairs. You've felt the teeth of history slip through your hair and leave something behind. Something real, something remembered. Now, as your body stills and the last images of the museum fade, let your mind find its rhythm again. Like the calm, like the braids, like the beat of the grayet's thigh, or the stroke of your mother's hand. You are not untethered. You come from people who made maps from hair, who carved defiance into handles, who wore memory tucked behind their ears. The world will always rush and roar and pull, but you're calm. It waits. It knows. It stays. So sleep now with that knowledge nestled beside you. Let your breath move like waves through parted strands, smooth and deep. You are held. You are history. You are home.